Hello, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are in the world. My name is Tammy Davis, and I come to you today with a discussion about, well, it's kind of a combination of oils and mental health and obesity and a couple of other things going on. So, yeah, check it out. It's for those of you who are new to me and haven't seen it before. Again, my name is Tammy Davis. I am a master clinical aromatherapist. I've been practicing working with, studying, and investigating essential oils for well over 30 years now. Um, I also have a background in pharmacology, and my focus is plant constituents as they relate to human physiology and drug development. Now, I'm not necessarily interested in using them like drugs. I am interested in how they are studying them, what genetics they're looking to target with them, of course, always what they report about them. That's always fascinating to read their findings. And in fact, I'm doing a newsletter for the month of May 2020, for those of you who are watching in the future, that involves mental health. And actually, I talked about cancer, but the thing is with the cancer, it's very interesting how the more they study plants, and they recognize that the current chemotherapy treatments are minimally effective at best, and that supplementing these treatments with natural-based remedies is better for the human body. Now, keep in mind I said supplement, okay? Anytime I talk on here, when I start making suggestions, it may have started out 4.5, 5 years ago where I was sounding like I was making suggestions as the only remedy. No, not anymore. Like I said, I've been doing this for well over 30 years, and my work has evolved. It's evolved in the sense that, well, part of it comes down to having my own level of health issues and realizing that once you've been handed a diagnosis, whether it be cancer or diabetes or depression, once you've gotten to that point, a natural remedy is not really going to do it for you. First and foremost, natural remedies take a while, okay, because they're resetting the body. It's not a quick fix, as many people have discovered, and oftentimes this is the reason why people will walk away from using natural remedies. So an oil per se is nothing like a medication because it's not nearly as concentrated and it is not specific in its action. If it has 100 components, it has 100 different actions, with regards to the way with regards to the synergistic value of the total of the whole. So if you're looking to use, or if you're currently using oils as a preventive, I strongly suggest that you use them on a daily basis, that you change them out regularly. You do not stick with the same ones, and pick them based on their constituents, based on their chemistry. If you currently have a health issue, then it's best to start with your doctor's recommendations. Take his advice, do those treatments, and then figure out how to, or find somebody that can help you add things like essential oils into the protocol, because ultimately the outcome will be much better. Essential oils are basically palliative care, okay? They do have a lot of benefits. There's a lot of great properties to them. And again, however, if you're taking a medication, then caution needs to be used, because we don't want to duplicate the mechanism of action when it comes to the medication, nor do we want to cause conflict at the liver enzyme level. So all of those matter. And again, depending on the types of symptoms you have, will determine which oils will get selected for you. So it's always best to work with a professional who does understand the chemistry of the oils so that you get the best results. And if you already have oils, at least get a consultation, which is something I can help you with, and at least some guidance as to which ones to pick and how to, again, adjust them accordingly, because they are chemicals and the body reacts. It's a chemistry lab, and as things change, your body's needs for oils will change. that said, today I want to talk about a particular gene that is indicated in both mental health and physical health. I've worked with it, or I've been aware of it, and have factored it into a lot of my to my protocols, whether it be with autism, rage, aggression, major depressive disorder. Let's see what else. Self-harm. And it's the BDNF, which is the brain-derived neurotropic factor. It is, when it's functioning properly, it regulates neurotransmitters, it's neuroprotective, and it actually regulates our energy levels. Yet, when it's insufficient, we tend to see heightened levels of diabetes, obesity, cognitive issues, and again, like I mentioned earlier, rage, depression, very aggressive behaviors. And what's interesting to me is this can happen at any point in time in our life. This is not age related. Sadly, though, we have this thing that the decline in memory is due to, well, old age, right? In men, we hear that it is because testosterone levels are down. We have this single-minded way of addressing things, and by that I mean, well, we'll look at testosterone. Oh, okay, well, the testosterone levels aren't where they should be, so therefore we will give you testosterone, right? Or you have an estrogen dominant cancer like I had. So we're just going to we just suggest that we just knock out your estrogen. Well, that sounds great. But neither one of those is effective, because the fact is, when one chemical is out of balance, or if I don't want to use the word out of balance, when you have a deficiency in one chemical, that means there's an excessive amount somewhere else. Okay, if you look at a blood test, you can see, I've seen recent blood tests for a man, the testosterone level was so low, but the estrogen levels were skyrocketed. Okay, well, there's a really good explanation for that, one that doesn't ever get considered. And that would be, very simply, when the body is threatened, whether it be environmentally, mentally, emotionally, or physically, when there is a potential for a threat, the MAPK signaling pathway notifies the DNA. The DNA subsequently signals the need for oxidative stress and inflammation. This is all about protection and survival. This mechanism, if you will, is designed to be deactivated once the threat is over. Yet, with all of the chemicals that we have and our chronic level of mental and emotional distress, this survival mechanism is not being deactivated. So therefore, we're kicking out more oxidative stress and inflammation than we can shake a stick at. This is the reason for all of the degenerative disease and mental health issues that we are seeing, and why it's on a rise, and why we're seeing more and more children with health issues or concerns. So, at any rate, once that happens and the oxidative stress and inflammation begins to be released into the body, you now have mast cells floating around, waiting, and they're releasing histamine into the system. In order to keep the histamine in check, the body begins to, of course, now keep in mind, this is a very simplified way of explaining this, but it is how the system works. So essentially the body is stressed. So with histamine released, now you have cortisol being released, because cortisol helps to keep histamine in check. Okay, that's one of the purposes of cortisol. It's not the only one, but it is in fact one of them. Needless to say, when all of this begins to happen, the body's digestive system begins to slow down, because so it diminishes our ability to break down carbs, fats, and proteins, because technically we're not really thinking about eating. It's not our energy needs to go into something else. Okay, keep in mind, I just used the word energy, and BDNF is used to regulate energy, so keep this in mind. So the energy is needed for other factors. So the BDNF gene actually switches to a different mode, to make, to kind of Like get your goat up, get yourself on guard. Okay, keep in mind, rage, aggression, is all linked to BDNF. So with that said, because of the growing level of cortisol, the body begins to release aromatase. If you're familiar at all with breast cancer, you've heard of aromatase inhibitors. Maybe you have, and so again, I'm actually addressing that in my newsletter, some natural forms of aromatase inhibitors. However, the aromatase has a purpose. This is how my mind works. If the body's making it, there's a reason. And the reason for that is that it actually takes androgens being produced in the adrenals and it converts them, like testosterone, and it converts it to estrogen. Therefore, now you have diminished levels of testosterone and heightened levels of estrogen. Because estrogen is now used to activate the autonomic nervous system and continually keep the immune system on high alert. Besides reproduction, it's also a stress hormone. Okay, again, this is a very simplified way of explaining this, yet it factors into everything that we're talking about when it comes to stress, when it comes to inflammation, when it comes to obesity and depression. Because keep in mind, as I said earlier, the digestion process slows. So we're no longer breaking down the carbohydrates and the proteins effectively. What does that sound like? Well, you're going to have higher levels of glucose floating throughout the body. Okay, it's not being appropriated because all systems have been altered, and as long as the system continues to be altered, you're not using your sugars. Now, with BDNF supposed to be regulating our energy, but it's been diminished because with major depressive disorder, with autism, with rage, with self-harm, aggression, and so forth, you see a diminishment in the BDNF activity. And that is because stress, aka cortisol, suppresses the function of the BDNF gene. Okay, so now you have the body's hungry, it's needing energy because it's got to keep going. Okay, again, the stress mechanism is designed to be temporary. Once the threat's gone, it's supposed to be reversed. This isn't happening. So we start to see higher levels of, carb craving, sugar craving, the whole thing with triglycerides, right? Jacking your cholesterol levels up, which that, but then we're not using vitamin D properly because cortisol also slows down VDR, which is your vitamin D receptor activity. So the vitamin D isn't being transported into the cells. You're not getting, the calcium levels aren't being used appropriately. Now you have hardening of the arteries. You could have gallstones, kidney stones, arthritis. I mean, it just becomes obesity because calcium is used in the, it's required for fat metabolism or just metabolism alone. So this is how all of this comes into play. And it just really came to mind because I had two different conversations today. One with an elderly man who has significant rage issues, memory issues, loves his sweets like crazy. Now, he's, like I said, he's elderly. I can make all the recommendations in the world for natural remedies, but what's the sense? I mean, you might question that, but I'm kind of a little bit too involved in the situation. I just don't feel like it's an appropriate one for him. Then there was another woman who, in her 50s, had breast cancer a few years ago, 6 years ago, still struggling with memory issues, very similar to this man, where she will tell the same story over and over and over again. Now, I don't consider that a memory issue. I realize that they're not remembering that they're telling the stories, that they've told the stories. But see, again, dementia is also linked with insufficient BDNF activity because the cortisol is keeping it suppressed. So finding ways to adjust our cortisol levels systemically is really where I'm going with all of this. Because in this case, this woman who's like oh my gosh, she's over 30. Yeah, she's 30 years his junior. To be telling stories like that over and over and over again, and there's a lot of anger there. There's a lot of anger there, and it just brought this to mind today with the BDNF. So I thought I would come to you with a few suggestions with regards to being able to improve BDNF. Okay, there's studies that show actually that yoga increases BDNF activity. Okay, so get your yoga on. That's not the only one I'm going to recommend. I also recommend myrrh essential oil because there is a nerve growth. It's the NGRF. It's another factor, nerve growth factor that is linked to tumor necrotic factor, and these actually signal the activity of the BDNF as well. So when the body is stressed or is in the stress mechanism has been activated, it slows down the BDNF activity in the way that, as far as homeostasis, and it begins to jack the levels of aggression, which makes a lot of sense. This is your survival, but we don't need to be living in that state all the time. So myrrh is a really good one. I've talked about it in other videos. I've talked about it in a way that it grounds you and it just kind of keeps you. But the bottom line is chemically, the chemistry of myrrh and this activity is profound. I don't know any other way to say it than that. It does, in fact, influence this genetic activity. It does help to regulate the stress response. In fact, I'm writing about this, revising my book on sleep and essential oils, and that is one of the factors about myrrh. It's very good with helping to regulate the stress response. It influences both endocannabinoid and endogenous opiate systems. So that's a really good one there. Roman chamomile is another one I would suggest because another factor involved in BDNF homeostasis is the serine threonine component, the CBS gene, and the cysteine factor. So Roman chamomile helps with that. The angulates in Roman chamomile actually help to stabilize that and produce a more serene feeling, and they help ease that restlessness. Okay. Another one is copaiba. Now, copaiba is known to, it actually helps to reduce histamine. Synergistically, it helps to reduce histamine, which then helps to improve nitric oxide, which now we have a better use of energy. We also have been able to clear our minds a little bit more. We have better, nitric oxide is necessary for digestion. It's necessary for cardiovascular and respiratory health. So it's an overall improvement, but you don't want to use that oil if you're taking any form of psychotropic medication. So right there, you're kind of cut out with that one. But if you're not doing anything right now, or you have a child with autism that's not taking any medications, then I would certainly go with those three. The last one I would recommend would be black pepper. Okay, black pepper is very good for supporting the digestive system, helping to regulate blood sugar, the carbohydrate, the protein deal that we were talking about. It supports what am I trying to say? Sorry. Energy, metabolism. And so it kind of helps thwart the overactive endocrine system and begins to stabilize that and supports a better use of energy. Again, coming back to the carbohydrate and the protein factor as well. So I would go with those four to start with. Again, chances are, just because we're talking about BDNF and because we're maybe depression or obesity or diabetes or dementia, I strongly encourage the use of oils for all ages. Like I said, this one case, it's not a good mix. That's my gut on that one. But other people could get away with it and do really, really well with it. So I would encourage the use and the inclusion, but as long as if there's medications involved, then we want to just double check. And what other symptoms might be going on, there may be something else to put in place. These are again are generalized suggestions. These are not necessarily good for everyone. So being aware of getting help would be the would I I wouldn't do this on our own because yeah, a second set of eyes and ears. I just yeah, I just don't want to seem too pushy here, but I just really advocate for getting us having another opinion, having somebody else kind of assist you with making the best decisions again, because I've reached the point with oils when if I formulate something for somebody, it is based on the chemistry of the oil. It is not based on the name, and I take into consideration everything that I'm trying to accommodate there. So that would be a reason for all of those. There would be only one other oil that I would recommend now that I'm thinking about it. Um, be frankincense Qatari, okay, or frankincense sacra. There's different frankincenses, okay? Please understand this. There's more than one. There's different types, and there's some that actually have thujine in them, and that long-term use of thujine is now a neurotoxin. So you got to know what's in your oils. So anyway, hope this helps you. Let me know if you have any questions about anything. Sign up for my email list. You get one newsletter a month, and always happy to chat with you. Follow me on Instagram as well, and read and follow my blog because you'll be notified of that with my email list too. Anyway, thanks you guys so much. Be well until we talk again.